Good morning and welcome, everyone. As the first speaker mentioned, today's talk is on karma and reincarnation. These twin doctrines repeatedly come for discussion, and for us to continue with that research at home when we sit at meditation as to what its inner meaning really is. Because in karma and reincarnation, it is necessary to understand our principles. HPB, when she came on the scene in the 19th century, brought to our attention the 7 principles of man and showed that the 4 lower ones are transitory, that they do not go from life to life, but its period of existence is one life. But then she showed us that the higher triad, spirit, Atma in the writings, and this is not writing very well, perhaps with the brown will be more visible, the spirit, soul, this is not staying on, I'm sorry, I'm making a mess of everything. Why is this not staying in here? Well, that's just... Okay, maybe that will do it. Except that I don't see where this is. Orby, please turn that off for a sec. I don't? Okay. I'm causing chaos. Okay. Soul, the spiritual soul, I should say. Our buddhi, and our mind, manas. These are universal principles as well as in us. Okay? So this is a part that is the higher triad of the writings, and this is the part that goes from life to life. And without that distinction, karma and reincarnation cannot be discussed at all. Because as you're aware, this season is being discussed all around us as being a special season. And indeed it is, because the regenerative power of nature is with us, and anything that we undertake during the season can continue throughout the whole year. But to understand that this is underlying that statement is very necessary. So Mr. Judge has a tremendous explanation of this subject in the Ocean of Theosophy. Today's talk basically comes from his writings. And I will quote a little bit from him. He says, this immortal thinker, this is the immortal thinker, having such vast powers and possibilities, all his, because his intimate connection with every secret part of nature from which he has been built up, stands at the top of an immense and silent evolution. How long have we been here? Is the chronology given out correctly? Well, the secret doctrine does, but this student has not seen it anywhere else. We are in evolution for millions and millions and millions of years. And since our mind has been lit up, we have been on this earth for 18 millions of years. So how can we talk about universal principles and not include karma, reincarnation, or re-embodiment where our environment is concerned? Because even science tells us at the beginning the environment is molten, it is hot, it cools, it vaporizes, it becomes solidified. And then where are we during all this period? Madame Blavatsky tells us without the soul being present, this process cannot take place. So we are all as souls imprisoned in the core until such time that the environment becomes suitable for the habitation of a physical body, so that the soul can come into the world, experience, and grow. What is the highest expected of us? Again, Mr. Judge very clearly tells us that everything in the universe exists for the soul's experience and gaining knowledge, not information, knowledge. We gain information, but we need to convert it to knowledge, and this is an internal process that goes on in the human. So, why is it necessary to gain knowledge? How else would we know who or what we are and what is our aim in the universe? And according to Mr. Judge, our universe is going to evolve with our thinking and with our doing. So what is the highest? He says that all of nature is going to be upgraded through re-embodiment and no part is to be left out. Now that's a very succinct statement. So everything around us is going to be uplifted. Who's doing the uplifting? We are. How are we doing it? Through this alchemical process that takes place in the body. The alchemical process is not just visible, it also includes the invisible. So this is visible as well as invisible. And we all know that our constituent parts are invisible mostly, only the physical body being visible. We have an astral body. Excuse me, astral body, and the universe has an astral sheath as well. Whatever is out there is within us. We have a passion and desire principle. We have the life principle, which is everywhere. It is a direct emanation or radiation from Atman, Jiv Atma. So we need to consider these things when we sit in meditation as to their inner meaning and how we correspond with the universe. So if we are then the agents of this change that we bring about, then we need to be very careful about what it is that we think, what it is that we say, and what it is that we do. Because as parts of the whole, we influence everything. And Mr. Judge says all of the atoms of the universe. What exactly are the atoms? We talked about it quite a lot, but in this talk it is also necessary to understand that the atoms are the inherent motion of the universe, because they are points of energy. They have latent fire infused into them, and in time they will evolve into men. So all of the atoms that we take in, we need to impress correctly. What happens if we don't impress correctly? We push them backwards to where they came from. They cannot stay in the human kingdom. So this alchemical process is continuously going on. Then he tells us that evolution is not just one or the other, because evolution takes place both in the physical and the spiritual world. And being monastic, this spiritual evolution uplifts, but then it also disappears, so to speak, from the world. Because when you look around, we see great nations come on the surface of the earth, then they all disappear. Well, why should that be? Any intelligent human being cannot possibly come up with the correct answers to these questions by the dogmatic religion or physical science. Because science only looks at our universe from the physical perspective. And the religious aspect is dogma. It does not sit correctly in the hearts and minds of thinking human beings anymore, because we as souls have advanced to a degree where we can think for ourselves. We have become independent thinkers. This is a necessary step in the evolution of humanity. Independent thinking is necessary. So when we look around, we see all these nations come and go, come and go, come and go. Okay, Egypt, Rome, Iran. I'm talking about the old Iran. Babylonia. All seats of learning. And why is that? Because the souls that are incarnated in these at the beginning come to build, to uplift all of nature. So there's a building going on continuously until it reaches its height. What exactly does that mean in the evolution of the soul? It means that once the degree of attainment has been obtained, then the souls have nowhere else to go in that particular civilization to get that evolutionary process continued. So they slowly leave. What happens? Lower souls who had less experience in the universe occupy those bodies and use them and attain as much perfection as possible in the given body type, and then they all leave as well. And towards the end, Mr. Judge tells us that this departure occurs by convolutions of nature, well, tsunamis, fires, volcanoes, all have a part in it. He says that towards the end of it, it's the females. They become sterile, and so the deaths overpower the incoming souls, so the remnant then totally disappears. That doesn't mean the souls have disappeared. The builders then come into present incarnation in nations where freedom of thinking, freedom of mind is possible to build a new, greater civilizations than the previous ones. And we know that the sixth subrace is going to be in this continent of the West, United States, but I don't think it's going to be in this United States as it appears today. So, what do we have in us? All of the lower kingdoms are incorporated in us. We have mineral, vegetable, animal substance, and so we embody all of the lower kingdoms in ourselves. So we are truly their elder brothers. As we look up to heavens for guidance, so the lower kingdoms then look at us for our guidance. Then he goes in to say that the Western nations are under the influence of the Mosaic thinking. And this student thought about that statement quite a long time. What exactly did he mean by that? Mosaic influence. Moses belongs to Israel. Jesus says, I have come unto the house of Israel. So, he came to a particular nation, but the Western world, by adopting the religious beliefs of the Jews, have brought that dogma into the West. So, that is why we are connected. Israel and the Western world is connected through the thinking process. What exactly is their religion about? And why is it necessary to separate from it? As human beings, they have every right to exist, but they do not have the right to push over that dogma to the Western world. However, since humanity has adopted it, it then becomes necessary for us to remove it. And how are we going to do that? How are we going to remove this thinking? One thing he says is that dogma is based on retaliation. This is very important. This is not my statement. You can go to the ocean and find it for yourselves. Retaliation. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth is retaliation. Are we getting anywhere with that kind of dogma and its practice in the universe? No, we are not. The Buddha says enmity is not overcome by enmity, but by love. So, we then, the Western world, have to adopt what Jesus said, love thy neighbor as thyself. So there is a stuff in the religions, but who of us are practicing what Jesus recommended? Truly, when he gave his sermon on the Mount Sinai, he brought this forward to the community, to the total of humanity that occupied that area at that time. But look what has happened. The universe, or the humanity in the West, has now made him the absorber of all our sins. How on earth are we achieving this uplifting of nature, humanity, and everything in our universe by relying on a departed soul? So HPB in the Secret Doctrine tells us it is necessary to look at Joshua ben Pandira, whose life is the example of the dogmatic Jesus of the books, and look at him in his true essence. This is very important. He was a great philosopher. What else was he? An initiate. What else was he?
Prophet.
The prophet of Israel. He did not come to the Western world. He only came to the house of Israel. He came to the Jews to show them how imperfections had crept into their system and to remove it. Instead, they removed him. However, this is all the stuff in a new form. We have to bring him to life. How do we bring him to life? He is what is called the Christ principle in each human heart, meaning the ray that comes from the one essence and resides in each of us, as the Gita passage showed it to us. So then it becomes the responsibility of each and every one of us to uplift this initiates, this prophet's statements, because they are relevant to life today as they were back then. So he was initiated into the Jewish inner sanctum by Al-Hanan. And then the Rabbi Jeshua continued with his teachings when Janus, he lived in the era of King Janus, 112 to 78 BC. So he does not belong to our historical era, but he lived 100 years before. However, his statements that he made, that Matthew recorded, are all true to life. So this great philosopher then has to become alive in us and not be referred to as a dogma, as a crystallized and carnalized Christ. And when this change comes about in the universe, then humanity can move forward, because we have separated ourselves. As the teaching says, ye come out and ye be separate. These are not empty words. These have tremendous significance in our lives. By becoming alive in that principle, we give life to this principle, who was exemplified to us in the life of Joshua ben Pandira. So, where am I? Okay, let's move on. Okay. He tells us that purity, which is the Zoroastrian Ashoy in their writings, is very important in our lives too. Purity of life comes from what? Comes from the ideology we hold. What else is connected to that purity? Ethics. Ethics is not a code to be followed. It's the moral center of that core of the heart, because the one essence is everywhere in everything. It's not separate from us. We are part of the whole, and the whole is inclusive of everything. So Mr. Judge again says, the object of life is commercial, financial, social, or scientific success in the West. This comes to, he says, personal profit, aggrandizement, and power. But he says the real man, the inner life of us, receives but very little attention. And unlike the Orientals, a scant prominence is given to the doctrine of pre-existence and reincarnation. As soon as we talk about the soul and its life, then how are we achieving the perfection possible for this Manvantara without re-embodiment of the environment, which is our universe, and reincarnation of the soul? How are we reaching perfection in one life when we spend so much of one incarnation in childhood, and then the other part is asleep, and then we have duties to perform? And what about nature's intention for us, as well as the human ego and his intentions for himself? Does it coincide all the time? Not necessarily. So we need to then pay attention to the inner life of ourselves in order to move forward. Now, this doctrine of karma and reincarnation was in all of the writings of the centuries from 1st to the 5th. Only in Constantinople, the fathers of the church made a decision to remove it. Why do you think they did that? Please think about it. They produced a dogma based on the doctrines of the pagans, so they had to make it clear of the pagan dogmas, according to the fathers, which are the truth about life and living, in order to sell it to the humanity of that time. And Mr. Judge also tells us that the writings during that period were all in Latin and Greek. And he says, just like all the other religions, it was not brought to the general public for them to read, understand, ask questions, and make their own decisions, unfortunately. So it remained segregated. So whatever they wanted to infuse into it, they certainly did. However, there is one section where it is stated that the true writings of Jesus is retained in Matthew's writings, and that the true Christians in Syria have that document. Now, in the opposition side of reincarnation, we are, and I'm not going to have enough time to go into all of the details of this talk, and I do apologize for it, but there will be another one in January, and then it can be finished then. What is the objections to it? Well, we are told, how is it that we don't remember our previous lives? Before we ask for privileges, we really need to understand what we are asking for also. And here is the question. If we could remember, what would we do with it, and how would we treat it? Would we be able to stand it? Because all of the details of each incarnation is definitely retained in the monastic principle, because we are going to come back and perfect the impurities that we were not able to deal with in that particular incarnation. So this is a continuous process. This purification, elevation, and going towards perfectibility is on a continuum, because that is the highest achievable, and that is what nature's intention for humanity at this stage of our development is. According to Mr. Judge, it is that we all become initiated into truth. That all of humanity become initiated into truth. As much of it as we can absorb, and as much of it as it can be given to this developmental stage in our lives. This is the whole plan for humanity, to be initiated into truth. And so that when we are initiated into this truth, then we would know who or what we are, why we are here, and what would then become. That the society we live in will embody these truths, and our lives would exhibit the truth, which is charity for all. Altruism in our actions that show caring for the other. Generosity for those who find themselves in positions that have less. The poor, he says, will always be amongst us. The difference is that in an age where moral qualities are used to judge daily living by, the effort on the part of the ones that have is generosity to those who do not have. Not what we see today, where he described in one sentence the dilemma of the Western world by saying the object of life in the West is commercial, financial, social, or scientific success, with the personal profit of aggrandizement and power to those who are misleading the lower classes by using their powers inappropriately to gain these benefits for themselves. So the difference then will become that the environment will show the result of healthy, moral, ethical, and kind living. This is what nature has in plan for us. So the part that says heredity is a proof against such is totally inappropriate, because heredity is only passing of the physical characteristics from one generation to the next. And he told us at the beginning that the body type for a specific period is set, but it becomes necessary for the parents to raise more purified children than themselves in each successive generation, so that in time we can invite in the pure souls, the nirmanakayas, who are waiting to be embodied, but they cannot be embodied in these body types because it would require tremendous, probably, effort on their part just to remain in the body types that they are not suited to embody. So it becomes our responsibility then to uplift the atomic structure of the physical body and give it the purest thought, speech, and action possible. Why? We're impressing these lives. In each successive life, we're impressing them and then releasing them for either use by others or when we come back again. So it is necessary that we understand the physical aspect of heredity and work for it, but that is not all of it. So the soul is free to live its life even during sleep. It is not of this physical earth. It is like a plank of salvation thrown onto this here, so that we can cling on to it and be raised higher and higher. It is not the lower that raising itself, it's that the higher is enabling us. There has to be that channel established so that we can communicate and be upraised all the time. So then this is a responsibility. And as you know, we all have more than one child. Most of us, it is, not all of us. And they're all different, like the fingers on one hand. 5 children will not show the same characteristics. And Mr. Judge gives the example of Bach, the musician. And he says this genius did not show that characteristic in the lineage after him. It decreased slowly and then disappeared from the lineage of his family. So it is, he says, how can we possibly look at physical characteristics and say that this heredity is against reincarnation? He says the ego, the soul, comes where the body type is provided for his use in that incarnation, because he's going to use that body type as a human being to progress in that struggle for perfectibility by purifying that inner nature that has come to do that work through that physical body. And as we read in the Gita, it says the light is in all of us, but in all of us it does not shine forth. I will stop here because there's a whole lot more, and as said, early January this discussion will continue. Yes, Dupree.
The horrific tragedy which occurred in Connecticut, where 20-some children were murdered, and people say, well, those innocent kids, okay, without the doctrine of reincarnation, it would appear to be just a horrible act, but in fact, they deserved, or not necessarily deserved, but they got under law what was coming forth to them. It was their karma to be in that situation. So those what appeared to be innocent young bodies were in fact old souls returning. And so under law, that was in harmony with karma. Could you say that? Could you expound on that?
From one perspective, we can say yes. Mm-hmm. But remembering that a child in incarnation is not responsible up to 7, then it came at a very early age. Mr. Judge in this article says, and gives a hunchback for an example, says that if we constantly aggravate and abuse someone with a physical deformity, what we are doing is imprinting it on our own mind, so that when we next time come in, that will have a sway, especially if that is also the punishment that is coming to the family, because they must have also had something to do with the violation of that human being. This is an interactive process, in other words. The parents and the children are in an interactive process, because as we just said, the soul comes into a body that is provided by the parents, because they actually are the ones that bring the child forth physically, but that the soul has come to the specific task. So from the karma reincarnation point, if this philosophy is to be accepted, it has to be accepted in its totality. Parts of it will not do any good. So yes, the souls that are coming in have had millions and millions of years of existence on this earth alone, let alone the other globes, in evolution. And yes, karmically, when the tsunamis come, it takes a portion of the populace, even in that particular country, and removes it from the population. So in direct relationship to the karma and reincarnation theory, it was just punishment or a learning experience for the souls who find themselves in those situations. Yes?
Given the same situation that Dupree just mentioned, there's individual karma, and there's also group karma. And for this nation in particular,
National karma.
what do you think would be the lesson when, because I have seen in this particular area that many people have come out in different faiths, sort of in solidarity. Everybody has personally felt what has happened there. So therefore, in terms of national karma, in terms of violence or nonviolence, what do you think that we are as a nation, as a humanity living in this part of the world, having experienced this horror, what is it that we can learn from having experienced this?
So your question is, this horrible event that came not only to individuals, but to a group of individuals in the nation of the United States, is teaching us a lesson, and what is the lesson that we need to learn from that experience?
Yes.
First of all, we need to remember unity of life, that, as we previously just said, since there is this interconnectedness of the whole universe and everything that is in it, whatever one part does, all the other parts feel it. There's whole, and each part is in this whole. So when that vibration goes out, everybody feels it. But karma and reincarnation never makes a statement that we are not to be charitable to the events that occur in our lives, because those parents, whether they believe it in karma or reincarnation, or whether they don't, they feel the loss of their children. Can we all imagine losing our own to such an event, whether we know that karmically it is a just cause or not? It would still affect us tremendously and color our lives for the rest of the duration on earth. It is not something that we can very easily get over with. So we have to give our sympathy, our compassionate love, and all the care that we can extend to those who suffer at this moment. And what is to learn from that is that we cannot abuse the laws of nature and not expect that circle to come right around and find its inherent point of energy where the execution of that rule as an action had begun. Meaning, for instance, what did we do as a nation to the Red Indians in this continent? Let me please finish my statement and I'll continue. Yes, go ahead.
In this context,
Yes.
9/11 tragedy, when it happened, Jerry Falwell, he said, Jerry Falwell, that priest, Jerry Falwell,
Yes.
He said, because we've seen, that's why it has happened. So all the people condemned, Christians condemned him for saying so. So he had to, I think, take his words back or apologize.
for
But
it.
I think it makes sense in a way, don't you think so?
Yes, it does make sense. So we have, as a nation, responsibilities for our actions, and we have done tremendous harm both to nature and the humanity that was on it when we came. What was it? What happened to the buffalo? What did we do to the buffalo? We killed them without any consideration. Thousands and thousands and thousands of them were used just for their skin. They would kill them and leave them on the field, the carcasses, to disintegrate. And there is an Indian in this position, open to the heavens, asking for help and understanding as to why this was happening. Because the newcomers to the continent were ignorant of the laws of nature. They came and abused all of the resources of this continent. We cannot abuse it and not expect it to come back to us. It will come back to us. And the reason why it comes back is that the souls who were abused and executed and removed by fire, by bullets, by whatever means, will reincarnate. The soul is immortal. It will come back into the environment and then cause its havoc for the injustice done. Yes, Dupree?
So then, if reincarnation are twin doctrines and offer a rational explanation for things which happen, so all of the, like you say, with in case of the tsunami or in case of genocides throughout the world, then they're all under law. Just like you said, the karma of the West is Mosaic. How did that come about, that we now have this Mosaic karma to deal with for the Western world?
Well, I think we already addressed it a little bit by saying that because of the dogma created by the Jews, and let me please make this a statement, that their elders, the old Jews, knew the truth, but what they did not do is give it to the world. And now the Orthodox Jews in the world don't know the truth either. HPV says, I am the only Mason in the West. She went all over the world to uplift humanity by teaching those in key positions in those students. But no one has told me this, but there is no doubt in my mind that she did educate a whole bunch of people in key positions to give this truth out again, so that in turn they could influence those people below them. Having said that, how did this come about, the mosaic? Because the Western world decided to not pay any attention to Jesus' statement where he says, I have come to the house of Israel only. He didn't say, I have come to the world. Buddha came to the world. His statements have come to the world, but he himself came to the house of Israel to show the impurities that had crept into their religion. This humble philosopher who was initiated into the secrets by Al-Hanan, to the Chaldean secrets, the inner sanctum of the Jews, was giving their secrets to the general public, and they objected to that. They did not want it given out. Then Al-Hanan, when Janus threatened the lives of the innocents, meaning the initiates, took the boy with him to Alexandria in Egypt. Joshua continued with his education. He was initiated into the Egyptian mysteries. He was given an opportunity to contrast what was being taught in Israel with what was being taught in Egypt, and came to the understanding of a synthetic philosophy, which is the wisdom of the ages, and he wanted to give it out. What chance was he given to explain his philosophy? HPB tells us it was very short. His life duration was very short. He was not given the opportunity to explain what he preached on Mount Sinai. And she tells us in the Secret Doctrine, from that day onward, the God of Israel and Jesus' God was not the same one. The dogma remains with Israel, but the inner sanctum remains with Jesus Christ and with the wisdom religion. He was an initiate. He knew what he was talking about. He would not give it out at the end. He would not defend himself. He would not give the secrets of initiation to the world. So he died. HPB has an article where she says he died because he had no choice. That wasn't what he wanted to do. He wanted to enlighten the world through giving this information to Israelites. He came to the house. So the West then took the dogma that the fathers were not giving the truth to the world. So she says, here they have the better of their transducers. These are her words, not mine. So Israelites knew the truth at the beginning, but the dogma that presides now is not the original truth for them either, because the orthodoxy has made something else out of it, carnalized Christ principle. So by the Western world adopting the untrue dogmatic philosophy, they have then taken this position of unnatural living, because karma and reincarnation is under law. The law is perfect justice. Law. Perfect justice. It's not human made. It is nature's law. Yes, just hold a second, please. And so under this law, we will bring to harmony what cause we had set to deharmonize the environment. In any part of the world, we are all going to be given a chance to bring it back to harmony. Because each one of us, through ignorance, not knowing what we are doing, do cause this disharmony in the universe and disparity among all humans. Does that answer your question? Yes?
Yes, I have, I guess, two questions now, based on your last comment. Is it also true that things happen because we need to learn a lesson, as well as because of something maybe or perhaps we've done in the past, number one? And
Can
number
I
two,
please answer that one first?
Yes.
Hold on to your second question. Yes, Mr. Judge tells us that we come for a specific reason, and sometimes the soul undertakes a particular position in an environment where it is going to gain experience and remove impurities from its character. So it is for that purpose and not punishment. Second question.
Second question, we're talking now about the Jews and the Christians, and I'm trying to relate this to a talk we had several weeks ago about the ages and the sages and the cycles and all these other things that we talk about. And I'm thinking about, well, yes, this is a serious issue that occurred, but then I'm thinking about the Hindus kicking out the Buddhists and things like that. So is it not that we have this this devolution, you mentioned it earlier, this degradation as time goes by of certain aspects of all religions, to the point where we have misconceptions entering into the process?
Yes.
Are we just talking about, we're not just talking about the West, we're talking about the idea throughout the world.
Okay. We said that there are those ages when all nature is lifted up through the thought process, because spirituality is in the ascendancy, and then physicality is in the ascendancy. So it wavers back and forth, because there is physical evolution as well as a spiritual evolution. But in the last talk, where the speaker gave us hints as to sages and the cycles, specifically she said it can be an uplifting cycle. Remember?
Exactly.
She said we have now passed and we're going in this direction upward. So HPB came for the 5,000-year cycle of the Buddha, the 2,500-year cycle of the zodiac. She came for the 500-year cycle as well as the 100-year cycle. All these conjunctions took place at that time. And the Brotherhood of the Wisdom of the Ages saw that as a tremendous opportunity to interject into the world the old truths once again and clothed in new ideology suited to the Western mind and life mode. And so hence it was given again. So it does not necessarily have to be made a degrading cycle. It becomes a responsibility for those who understand the process to make sure that they promulgate the true teachings to others in a form that they can understand it in, and hence influence the thinking process to suit itself this way: universal, impartite, unsectarian is where we are going. Yes, Tupri?
Just two parts. When Mr. Judge first saw HBB, the eyes met and he felt as if they had known one another in the past. So when people fall in love at first sight, they say, I guess that's somewhat similar to the same thing. And the second part deals with karma and reincarnation. You have, in today's society, you have the community called LGBT, lesbian, gay, transgender individuals, okay? Now, under law, they may come in as a male, but then they're frustrated. Their karma is that they want to become a woman, or a woman wants to become a man. How does that, all that confusion come in there if everything is under law and just that this person comes in as a man, but desires to be a woman? Where's all that karma coming from?
Well, then I would have to be a Lipika to answer that question, and I'm not. But Lipikas are the ones who know. However, when we consider the soul as an immortal entity going through experience, obviously that soul is put in that position to gain experience, whatever it is lacking, because it is stated that in order to become humane to men, then you have to first understand what you are as a woman, or vice versa. Why? Because we are one half of the equation. We are 18 million years ago, we have been halved. The Scorpio and what? Split into two and gave us this existence on earth as two pieces of the one unit, man, woman. One half of the information of DNA is in the father, the other half is in the egg. Until the egg gets fertilized by the father, the complete information for the regenerative process is not there. So we need to understand the qualities of a woman as well as the qualities of a man. Women are divine, and what else? Wisdom principle. Men are the spirit principle. They represent action in motion. So we need the both to become what? Perfected. So we are given an environment as a family where we learn love, respect, kindness, sacrifice for the other, because there are no parents who do not sacrifice for their children in some form or another. We all sacrifice for our children. And loving one another. What you just said is description of human love. In this age, Mr. Wadia has an article where he says it has become a waste of energy by wasting through passion. We are not to give in to our passionate nature, but to control it. So those human beings who find themselves in these very difficult situations have a very great lesson to learn. That's why that controversy comes to them to sort it out in themselves. So what we need to show kindness and understanding towards their dilemma, but nowhere have I read in the theosophical writings that the marriage laws are to be changed to accommodate such, that they deserve every equal right under law. But marriage is a sanctified unity where purified children are to be raised, where we are to invite higher beings from higher realms to incarnate amongst us so that they can show us the direction and the solutions we need to have.
Just a quick comment. You're getting into man's laws versus higher laws.
Nature's laws.
In this student's view, marriage is a higher law. It had, somehow it's gotten into man's laws and caused, I think, these sort of the genesis of these kinds of problems that we're having to face today. So in this student's view, things like this are not only opportunities for lesson to those directly affected, which would be the same-sex couples, but also opportunities for us as a society to grow in understanding and love toward each other in terms of dealing with these issues. And it gets to be complex issues that we have to deal with every day.
Their souls in evolution, as well as every human being on this earth, as well as all of the other kingdoms, including all of the atomic structure of every universe that we have come into, all of it is to be uplifted to the degree that it can, up to the 7th round, that as much perfection as possible to all within the whole is to be achieved. Thank you all. We can continue our discussion privately. Thank you.